Yo, yo, yo.
Yo,
How's
yo.
your day been, mate?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
Good, good.
Perfect.
I had a
As you can
lovely.
see, or as you have seen, I've become Grandmaster. So, no, I'm just kidding. I actually also fell out of the league because I didn't play enough games, I think. I'm not sure. And it was fake either way. So, yeah. Um, you asked me what I want to focus on. Maybe I can give you an update if that's okay
Yeah, absolutely, man.
on what I've been on the last, I don't know, week or two. Okay, so I am winning most games. I think I'm winning like 4 or 5 games in a row. Then I lose another one. Maybe I lose 2 times in a row. I don't know. And then I win 6 or 7 times in a row. So when we go to the percentage of my winning streaks against Protoss, at least in this season, I did not play many games. 46. And against Protoss, I have 87% win rate, which is very good in my opinion,
Wow.
especially if you think about what I did before, which was not so good. So the Ravager Roach Ling attack into Mudas is working very, very well. Against Zerg, I have 69%, and against Terran, it's 50%. So that's my weakest there. And I win most games, I think. And yeah. But when
Okay.
it comes to late games, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, 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 continue.
Okay. Um, when it comes to late games, I struggle a lot because I keep building the units I've built, which they have most of the time built a counter against. And yeah, that's it mostly. I don't know what to do. Sometimes I'm writing to you, and I don't want to annoy you, by the way. And because I don't know what to do, especially against Terran in the late game, against any race, I
Okay,
think.
cool. I mean, I appreciate that. The best thing is to just come up with an idea and then try it, right? And stick with it
Mm.
and keep playing it and seeing how it goes. So, have you kind of haphazardly tried lurkers or brood lords or ultras or anything like that? Like, what
Ultras, yes, and I have won games with that. So you told me that when it comes to later games, I will build, or I'll have to build ultras, so that they will counter pretty much anything that counters Lingbane, and that worked very, very well. I even won games that I thought I would lose, and I still won them because I had like 5 ultras and they destroyed everything. So that worked, but I did not in at least in 1v1. In like when I'm playing with friends, I'm most of the time I'm more like oh, I missed the word last time. Now it's missing again. Give me a second.
no worries.
Confident. Yeah, confident.
Ah,
In 4v4, when we are playing with like 8 friends or with 4 altogether, then I'm pretty much more confident and try out new things. But in 1v1, I try to win. And that's why I stick to the strategies you've shown me. So Ultras is the only thing I've tried so far. I tried some of the, I don't know the name in English, the things that can pull tanks to you. I don't know what the name is. Vipers?
yeah, yeah, Vipers.
Yeah. And I've tried them. Yeah, but that's it, actually.
Okay. So you've experimented
Not,
with Vipers, you've mostly just gone Ultras. All right. Did you
yeah.
have replays to look at? We can hop in and take a glance at.
Oh, let me let me have a look. I did not prepare anything.
No worries.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
just in general, just a good idea is always just basically think, okay, what do we want to talk about, number one, and what are replays that show that? And that you can always almost have that figured out just through your ladder sessions if you finish games and go, what the fuck happened here? Like I
Okay,
don't
okay.
anytime you leave a game and you go, I didn't know what I should have done, you could literally just save, all those replays. So you give them all a name.
Okay.
And then you can, scroll through and go, oh yeah, here's carriers one, here's mass siege tank mech number three, whatever it is. We can just like hop in and quickly take a look at some things because there's so much to be picked up outside of the theory when we look at the actual games. There's so much in the theory side as well. So while you hunt for that, I'll write a few notes down here in our document. So late game, ultras, default, experimenting with vipers, those are great. So beyond that, there's 1,000 tools we can use. Probably lurkers, I guess, would be the next
Mm.
tool we can experiment with. Is lurkers. Likewise, though, as you level up, I also, especially as you get closer to Diamond 1, you're going to need to very viciously sidestep into different unit comps. We're going to want you
Okay.
to learn a Roach Hydra style. We're going to want you to learn to play Hydraling Bane and all these different things because it's just bad to only be a one-trick pony. It's not fun. It
Yeah,
doesn't give you a lot of
absolutely.
flexibility, and it's just we want you to learn the whole Zerg toolkit, even if that means your MMR goes sideways for a while. You go up, you go
Yeah,
down,
I
all
don't
that
care
sort of
anymore.
stuff. Yeah.
I
So
did
so
care a lot.
I and maybe some days like you hop on and if you're ever inspired by something in StarCraft, bring it to me or even just try it on your own and give it a go. Because I think
All
the
right.
most important thing is to try things that excite you and interest you and go, man, I really want to figure out this puzzle. Like how can I make Hydra Viper work or something? Whatever the weird thing
Can I
is.
ask you a
Yeah.
question? Very quick question. I don't think I'm a like a bad gamer or a stupid person, but still, I think that StarCraft is kind of a like hard to play game if you like to play it on a very high level. Don't you
Uh,
think? Because
yeah.
what you said in the video was that some people could intuitively understand the game, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I missing? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you just need to play a lot more. The intuitive understanding, even for people who intuitively figure things out, and don't get me wrong, there are like Scarlets and stuff who've spent so much time. If you've spent enough time competitive gaming at a high level, you see patterns across games and genres and archetypes of units and how they work. And there's a
Okay.
lot of just pattern recognition. But that comes from just thousands of hours of gaming, right?
All right, right.
So that intuitive picking things up, it's thousands of hours of other games, but then it's also like everyone has that one gamer friend who's just like a prodigy, and you're like, what the hell? They learn so fast. They do. They also game 12 hours a day usually.
Okay. Is
So
there a
that
tool to
helps.
look? Is there a tool to see your game time or play time that you have had in StarCraft? Is there any tool?
Oh, to see the game time, if you go
Yeah.
into your options and go observer and replay menu, it's the very bottom in the menus. Don't know what it is in
Yeah.
German.
Okay. Okay.
There
Where
should be
can
a
I see it?
tick box for display replay time info.
Oh, no, no, no. I mean, how much I have played in the last 12 years or so.
Oh, if you click on your profile, it should tell you a rough. If you go, should have total career games when you
Yeah.
go through the different races. So that's going to tell you, I think, ladder games only. I don't think it includes custom games, but still gives you a rough idea. This is my European account, so I've got literally almost no games on this. Actually, no
Okay.
games on
So
this.
if we because I'm interested in that, if we get some estimate like 10 minutes per game, is that something we can work with or not? Maybe
Yeah,
longer.
I don't know, probably 12 minutes or something like that, maybe.
Let's take 12. And then, okay, I don't know how to calculate. I want it in hours, yeah.
Uh,
1,131 hours, which is only 47 days, which is not that much.
yeah, I mean, obviously it's a lot of games, but if you're not super hardcore actively trying to get better at 1v1 in that time and you're hopping on and playing team games with friends, there's usually a very big difference, right? Like most people can play tens of thousands of hours of any game, but it's also about, are you trying to actively hardcore improve during that time? Because if you're not, you're hobbying, right? You're hopping on, you're playing games, you're having fun. I can go rock climbing and I do not try to improve really at all anymore. And I don't really
Mm.
get better. Like, I get a little bit more
Got it.
conditioned, I get slightly better, but it's like such marginal gains, right? Whereas if I was challenging myself and focusing on my form and watching some videos and kind of watching other people and studying a bit more and memorizing sequences, I could improve way quicker and
By the
start to
way,
push myself. But yeah.
I think so too because I'm playing. I've been practicing the things you told me to practice, and that's what my games consisted of. I actually found a replay against Terran, which lasted about 14 minutes. And if you want, we can watch it. If you want to show me anything else, we can do that.
No, let's hop in. The sooner we get into replays, and this will be actually a good format to get the most out of your time in future. When we start, you can immediately invite me into a party and load a replay. And we don't even need to know what the replay is. We can just talk about other stuff, overview what's happening. Just make sure I'm the lobby host in here. So right click my name in the lobby and just go promote to lobby host. And what's good is it just allows me to pass the information because it takes a while to load replays and to fast forward through them and stuff. But if I'm watching the actual replays, nice GM bug, I love it. He added it as well.
Yeah.
It just allows me to pick up what's happening.
I think I almost had him. And that's, that's the thing.
Almost had what?
I think I defeated him almost.
Oh, this game. Okay, sorry. I thought you meant GM. You almost were GM. And I'm like, no, that's not how
No,
that
no,
works.
no. I try to get a bigger or higher MMR and not the... I mean, I really like the like kind of badge. I don't know what it's called. The glowing golden thing around your profile picture. I like that.
Yeah.
But still, MMR is better.
Indeed. Did I not go windowed? I did. So why is it... Oh, I see what's happening. Oh, okay. Chuck this over here. That'll stay out. Okay. Yeah.
I think I did the Lingbane build here, but I'm not sure.
So you okay, cool. So we're still doing drone scout. We're gonna go hatch first. Let's check. All right. Workers aren't doubled up necessarily. There is one close patch. It's not doubled. Doesn't make a huge difference, but we'll see if that continues later on. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at your mineral line, you can see in your main base you do have 16 workers, but there is a mineral patch with only one worker on it. So
there is a mineral patch with only one worker, you mean?
Yep. So can
you
see which one it is, yeah?
Yes, the third from upwards.
Yeah. Okay, now the 16th guy actually came back because it was your scout from the other side of the map. So you only had 15 guys on minerals. So here's a hot tip. Whenever you drone scout, a lot of players don't realize this. So check this. Your drone is scouting. And then you're like, cool, normal build, I'm going to go home. The moment he is clicked back to your minerals, he counts as a worker mining that base, even though he's on the other side of the map.
Yeah.
So just a small thing there is you actually don't have 16 workers on minerals in your main. You've only got 15, even though it says 16. So this is why, if I click him back, I always like to click him back to the natural, not the main, or onto a gas or something like that.
I wasn't sure if I should do that.
Number.
Sometimes I did that way or that way.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a small thing. It's obviously a minor efficiency point, but a lot of people don't realize like what's happening there when that's the case. So I'm like, okay. Because then we could have, we should have left an extra guy on minerals and then pulled onto gas. Like this guy that just popped out and is going to your natural. He should have been the last worker onto gas, right? Because, rushing link speed's not all that crazy important. Anyways, other than that, opening looks okay. We're just chilling, making link speed. We've pulled off gas at 100 pretty well. Yep, we're mining nicely. We're going to go out to take a third in the near future, which is good. Inject. Very solid. This map's kind of interesting with Overlord positioning because this bottom path area, they can't really attack you on the ground. So I guess the most important areas, I haven't really played much Zerg vs Terran on this map. Overlord here, and then Overlord up here will kind of be the ones to cover your front. But obviously you do want something down the bottom at some point as well. And if you want to get vision down there as well, something you can do is you can always just go mine that mineral patch with a drone, a single patch, and run a Zergling to the tower. Or what I would advise on this map is just about this time, 3 minutes, whenever, grab a single drone and tell it to mine these gold minerals. Because if you don't do that, they can always put tanks behind there, and you'll never mine it out once they're set up in a position there. So you want to make sure that path is open, and sending a single drone to open that path up doesn't really cost you much, right? It doesn't affect your build too much. It's just going to make things a bit cleaner and simpler for you. So good habit. We did put back on gas in our main, but we haven't rebuilt the drones there. Hopefully we remember to do that. We're still clicking out eggs manually, which I hate.
Okay.
So that's a really bad habit with these drones. You already have your rally point set to your third, so why are we also clicking the eggs there? We don't need to. Just extra clicks. If we're going to be clicking, what we should have done is we should have selected our hatchery to build 4 or 5 drones separately, and then click them on the minerals in the main, right? Because we've pulled guys off onto gas. And remember, it's better to be in the red. We want to be 17, 18, or 19 workers on our bases, especially in this early stage, because you've still got to take extra gases, you've still got to build evo chambers, baneley nests, hatcheries. And anytime we go under 16 workers, we lose a lot of efficiency, whereas going above 16 is actually a good thing, right? Up to 18 or 19 is still very efficient. It's only below 16 that actually hurts us. So just a small thing, but something that does matter, especially with that habit of clicking drones whenever we build them is really nasty, in my opinion. I think it's a huge APM waste, and it's so common. Almost every modern StarCraft player does it. And it's such a waste of time, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. So like here, I get this one made sense. You built 3 drones and click them in your main to fix up your saturation. Do you see those 3 drones they're in eggs right now, but they're rallied to your main? If you click on the eggs at your bases, there's one from each base. Reason it's inefficient is number 1, they're going to have to travel a long way. The ones from the natural and the third, right? You just selected your hatcheries, built 3 drones, clicked. You had no idea where those drones were going to build. The other thing that's gone on here is you've then immediately gone and built 2 evo chambers. So those 3 drones is only going to bring you up to 14 out of 16. And this is what I'm talking about with oversaturating is a little bit better on these bases. It's going to make your early game a bit smoother. So what I would have preferred, like I said before, is a little habit here. So let's actually write notes on this stuff as well. So first things first, replay, ZVT, Eldorado. Okay, so first thing, what did I mention before? I mentioned basically...
I shouldn't rally the drones to mineral lines separately.
Yeah, scouting drone as well, don't rally back to main minerals, because it, you know, the drone counter gets confused, basically. Don't manually click every drone you build. Let the rally point do the work, right? Let the rally point do its job and just manage the rally point, right? And then this last one was remember to replace drones in your main base when you put back on gas.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Let's say I'm missing like 3 workers in the main, but the hatcheries are all rallied to the third. Let's say, do I rally the first or all of 3 of them to the main back again and build 3 workers, or do I can I manually click them on the mineral line?
No, that's what I was saying. Is in that scenario you can manually rally them because there's a reason for you to do it, right? Because you still want 90% of your drones going to your third, and the best way to do that is to manually click your main. So after a lava inject cycle, rather than selecting all your hatcheries, you just click on the main because then you're making sure the drones are building right next to the minerals, right? So you click the main hatchery, you build drones, click them on the minerals, then you select your hatchery hotkey and do the rest of your macro cycle, if that makes sense.
Okay, let's say I have 14 drones on the natural, and I'm building 6 drones. I think that's why I rallied them to the natural, some of them, and some of them to the third. That's also not the way to do it. Do you understand what I mean?
Right. Okay. So you're saying, okay, you're at 14. I mean, yeah, no, just let all 6 go to the natural and then change the rally point to the third. Like if you wanted to, what you could do is you could basically, if you've just built 6 drones, you could click them on the natural because you already want to change your rally point. So often when you're at like 14 out of 16, we're like, okay, we're going to build 6 drones, click them on the natural minerals, and then select the hatcheries and rally to the third. Because we want to change the rally point now, but we need to give the drones an order so they don't follow that rally point, if that makes sense. And that's totally fine to go up to 20 as well. If you wanted to, you could build 3 drones or 4 drones, go to 17 or 18, click them on the natural, and then do that whole step. Rally to the third, build the rest of the drones if you want to, if you've got the APM you've got plenty of time, you're not under any pressure. But simple is usually going to be better than more complicated. Try not to make it too fancy.
Okay.
So a really good habit for you to build. Well, first of all, let's talk about, so if the mining gets messed up, if your main ends up undersaturated, then you click your main base at the start of a macro cycle and build drones and click them onto the minerals, then do the rest of your macro cycle, right? So, or at the start of your production, I should say, production cycle, that part of the macro cycle. Yeah, so if we make that a habit, that's a really nice way of manually fixing our economy to be super efficient, right? It's like, oh, I need drones here. This one has lava. Let's do it. Now, what you're going to have, look at the game timer we're at here. Let's go back just a few seconds to show you. Your first lava inject always pops at the same time every game. So your main will never end up undersaturated until a bit later if you do this every game, which is your first lava inject right here, 3 minutes 10, every single game. So I've written this in your notes here. Remember to replace drones in your main base when you put back on gas. Great habit is just use your first inject to fix it at 3 minutes 10. So what we do is these injects pop out. We go inject, jump to the main base, select the hatchery, and we build 4 or 5 drones. We build 3 drones, click them on the gas, and then we select the hatchery hotkey and go back to just build drones like normal and let them go to the rally point, right? And because they take 12 seconds to build, they'll pop out, they'll end up going onto gas just before 3 minutes 30, which is a pretty good time to go on gas, which is actually just only 2 or 3 seconds after you've put these drones on gas. And it's just convenient, right? It's really nice because it happens the same way every game with a hatchery first. And it avoids this problem of undersaturating our main base. We never have to pull workers on and off minerals or anything like that, so we don't mess up the optimization of the drones, right? Because every time you pull on and off, sometimes they bounce around a bit while they figure out where they want to mine from.
Okay. I think what I'm understanding is that I have underestimated a lot the importance of drones. And because what you also are keeping an eye on, what you've told me to keep an eye on was the workers who are traveling a longer way from the mineral line because of the further away mineral patches. And yeah, so I do think I did underestimate it a lot.
It helps a little bit, yeah. It's not the end of the world, but just these little things add up over time, right? So we get a little 2% gain or a 0.5% gain here, another one there, and suddenly you just have a few more Zerglings ready to defend a push and everything's much easier. Alright, so Liberators come in here, and this is obviously one of the classics, Liberator harassment. So I would say it's really important with certain harassments to always have a response list. And Liberator is a good simple example that we can talk about, but let's just go over here and talk about that really quickly. So Liberator harass. And you want to have a set play that you do every time. So when we see the Liberator, what's the first thing we do? It's pull our drones away. So pull drones. And these little set plays are things we can program in, so we can just do them automatically over time. That's why we do it the same way every time. There's a lot of players who never program things into their play. They do things in chaotic random orders. Sometimes they're a bit better at playing in messy situations, but also they will always be much less efficient at a lot of the basics because they just don't do anything consistently. This is the frustration of watching some pro players like Hero who just do things randomly every single game. He's very good at adapting, but he also is just worse at the basics than a MaxPax. Whereas MaxPax is like a robot, very methodical, very, set, follow this exact plan every time and do things in a very exact way. And that is why MaxPax, I think, arguably has the highest skill level, even though he's a bit more predictable, which can be a problem in a strategy game. So pull drones number 1. Next step would be move the queen. Actually, let's say build spore, because that's really simple. I think build spore is really simple.
I think I have already practiced that, because that was in session number 1, one of the things you told me to practice.
Oh, we did talk about it. Okay, good.
We did talk about it, and I did practice it. And I
like
hope
to
in
build
the
spores at other
replay-
bases as well. Do you
Okay.
normally do that or no? It depends, because if your opponents are
Yes.
never moving the lid, then it's not an issue. But here
Normally
you
I
built 2
do.
spores is the reason I brought this up, because I was kind of confused that you built a second spore in this
I'm not.
replay.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure if I built one in the other bases.
Because this is something you need to just always review, because like you will get caught up in the chaos of a game and you'll start doing random things like building 2 spores instead of 1. And you just need to
Okay.
remind yourself and go, why am I building 2 spores? Like, one's always going to do the job. Don't get me wrong, if it's late game and you're playing a guy who's literally just sending liberators at you nonstop, like constantly, yeah, we can build like 3 spore crawlers at each base, sure, right? Like that's a special
Okay.
scenario where your opponent is just being really annoying and we just want more coverage. But with a normal early lib harass, not necessarily the case. And you can see that kind of threw you off your game a bit, where, there we go, we do reset on the macro cycle, which is good. But definitely a bit late on these extra spores. Like, I would have taken those a bit earlier just to make sure if the Liberator was dancing around. It just automates the response. You also built 2 spores up on that 3rd base, which is really expensive. I mean, this is just a single lib. It almost died. We don't really have a reason to think we need more. Even the single spore at each base is already us being overly
I
careful.
always think that they can like just move in another direction and still get the workers.
That's what the queen's for. You know, the queen will be on top, and you can very quickly uproot the spore crawler and move it. Remember, spore crawlers move very quickly. So whenever the liberator moves out of range, you uproot the spore and you move it. So you'll see pro gamers when you watch them, the lib will move to the other side. The spore will immediately uproot when the liberator's out of range and tell it to root on the other side of the mineral line. And then the pro Terran player will tell the lib to go back to the first side of the mineral line. And then the Zerg will change the spore crawler and cancel the root and move it back to that side. And there'll be this little dance. And you might think, well, that's really annoying, isn't it? Well, that's only if your opponent's a top-level Terran who's watching the lib the whole time. If someone at your level is doing that, their macro's shit. They've got 1,000+ minerals in the bank, number 1. Number 2, your queen should be hitting them the whole time. So keeping that queen alive, that's the timer on the Liberator. She kills it very slowly, but she moves around and does that consistent damage, while the Spore Crawler does crazy high damage, but of course can't move around as smoothly. So that'll put the timer on it, yeah. All right. Just 1 spore per base, which is why we wrote that down here. No worries. Cool. Okay, so we've got the 4th and 5th hatchery. We're doing the 1-1. Lair is pretty late this game.
Yeah, no.
1-1's already finished, right? So because we got quite distracted by some pretty light harassment, yeah, we are kind of behind on that stuff. Now, also, if we look at this replay, you can see you're never going to break here unless he moves out, right? So if you go up that ramp, that is a terrible move. Let's see how quickly you realize, because I think you should immediately at that point go, yeah, nah. There's multiple tanks up there. There's no way I'm getting up that ramp. But the fact that you're morphing Banelings tells me you might not be realizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking I'm breaking that wall.
Yeah. Think about it this way. He's on 2 base, not 3. So if he's on 2 base, you're on 5 bases right now. That's an advantage, isn't it? Number 1. Number 2, you're attacking up a ramp. It's just it's one of the worst angles to attack, right? If he moves out, if you're building this army and you're like saying, look, if he moves out to take a 3rd, I'll kill it. Sure. Some people, what they do, and like I said, mine open these minerals. Just a single drone trip will mine open the middle of the map. Always do that on this map. And you should have had this side open as well by now, right? Because that single drone. You could just send in like 8 Zerglings down here to this base and just go, you know, kill whatever SCVs that, and just force him to move out. You just wait somewhere, hide your army, either up here, so when he moves out, you smash into the side and go for his economy, or you just jump on his army when he moves out, one or the other. The 3rd thing, you don't have Bane speed, right? Normally you have Bane speed with this 1-1 Bane speed timing. Without Bane speed and up a ramp into tanks, it's just no-go. There are certain situations you do not do, right? If there's a Protoss army with like force fields sitting in their natural on 2 base, you're on 3 base, it's an easy opportunity here to go, look, I built a big army. I can't use it right now, and that does suck. That does feel bad as a Zerg. But if I build 20 drones right now, take 3 more gases, you know, and basically just take a few more hatcheries, keep injecting, keep spreading creep, go towards Hive, head towards Ultras, add, if he's got air units or something, he's, you know, maybe we need to add Corruptors or something like that, or Hydras if we do need anti-air, but generally speaking, just sling Bane into Ultra. You got 20 more drones, you got creep, and it's his job to come to you and punish you. And because you've got that explosive Zerg production, you always have the option to do this, right? Where we try to commit to these sort of timing attacks, But we also want to pattern recognize and go, what's a pattern that I should never go into? You already tried to poke that ramp. You saw 2 different tanks firing on you and a bunker. And we can assume that's a full wall off as well. Going up there
Yeah.
with slow banes is just never going to work at all. So this is just one of those situations we go, okay, can't quite attack into there. Let's build some drones and continue massing Ling Bane. And all it takes is 1 round of drones, right? You know, if your lava injects all pop, you're going to have 15 lava or more. You build 15 drones, bam, man, you're on 70. That's like a crazy economy against the 2-base Terran. And you can keep running in and just denying his third if you want. He's going to be really carefully, slowly have to get that up. And you're just going to have endless units the longer the game goes. But the longer we sit on 54 drones, the more acceptable his very delayed third base is, right? And the more acceptable all that sort of stuff is. So, really bad attack for us. Units lost tab tells the story of that, of course. And, yeah. Let's fast forward. Still trying to run up that ramp. So you still haven't engaged in the bottom side of this map. Really important. This is a very special sort of map. Whispers of Gold is an old map that was similar. And if you don't open up that bottom side, you're going to be in trouble. I'm not even sure you realize he's expanded down there. You saw a gas, so you should know it.
Yeah.
But positionally, it feels like you don't really realize that's what's happening. So you went mutas this game. Any particular reason?
Killing his workers. What I've seen from the against Protoss.
Cool.
And
It's
I
not
thought,
bad.
okay, that worked sometimes, so maybe it will work this time as well.
Ultras would be better though. So it's nice to get them to control drops and stuff, but the real thing against Terran is always just going to be having more better army. And yeah, you can see that because we've thrown away a few armies here, right? We're still at 67 workers. If we built those 15 drones earlier and didn't throw those armies away, like we'd have just enough to easily swarm them. Either way, this is still a pretty good attack here. And base trading is usually pretty good for Zerg. Now we're about to enter a rather crazy base trade. In this scenario, you want to make sure all your units are just A-moving into his main. You don't really need to micro anything here. You could have just A-moved. And the more important thing now is what do we do in a base trade?
I don't know.
Always come up with a list. Always a list. So, run drones from exposed bases to safety or across the map. So if you think it's just going to be he's going to pick off a base or 2, and that's all, you could run your drones to the back of your main base, right? Or into your main. From this third and maybe even your natural, right?
Yeah. Watching
But,
this replay again, watching this replay again, I think my army could have destroyed his. And I still lost the game because I was in his base and he destroyed everything. My units that came back were destroyed as well, and that's it. But you will see. Sorry.
Base trade favors you though. You're playing Ling Muta, but you're the best base trading army in the game. Lings kill shit faster than anything else in the game. Like Lings are amazing. So if you do what we're about to say, you can do that as well. Was committing to the base trade necessary? No, it wasn't. If you made Banelings, you still probably could have been fine fighting front on. But you'd played some pretty bad fights up to this point. So with what you knew in the game, actually going for the base trade is a good call. But we need to quickly do some things. So we need to run drones from exposed bases, or if we think it's a full base trade, run across the map so we can rebuild some buildings on the other side so we don't get eliminated. That's step 1. Step 2, change rally point to back of main base. Okay?
Okay.
Why do we do that? We also need to stop control grouping eggs. So you know how you're so used to control grouping eggs? In this scenario, we don't want new units coming out to be control grouped. We want them to rally to the back of our main. We want to make...
Could I use the backstep key, maybe?
If you want to. Yeah. Stop control grouping eggs or put on different, on backstab key, secondary army group, whatever it is, right?
Okay.
The important thing is those need to be in the back of your main, and you want to morph Banelings there. You want to just make Masslings and Banes there, or Ultras, or whatever it is, so you can get a big clump of them, and then roll through this not that very scary army that he has, right? And looking at his army, we could probably kill this with even just Zerglings. But that allows you to separate your army, whereas most people, they panic, and they end up with everything on one big control group, trying to base trade, trying to run home, and it's running back and forwards, and units are filtering to their death. Now, if you do that, problem. often your bases are now separated. He's in between your bases. So a second step, if you're really pro, change rally points from cut off bases to somewhere else to gather up. So let's say we had this base in the top middle and this top left base. We would set the rally point for them somewhere in the top middle of the map, right? Or top right of the map. We'd say, hey, you guys rally up there somewhere away from his army, because the initial rally point change we made on all of our hatcheries is obviously going to run them through his force. But if we do the initial rally point change, then we got there, we click the hatchery, we shift click the other hatchery, we right click up here in the top right, that's going to be really good. Now, last step, which is actually huge, it is a game changer. And it is basically why Zerg is overpowered in these situations, is you control click your overlords and you run them away. Now, you already have a really good habit clicking those overlords in the back. So they're probably safe there. But if you want, you can also fly them like over to the bottom middle of the map or somewhere, just somewhere down there, if they are on an edge where the opponent could get to them with like Marines and Thors and stuff. So you can just find like a big area of dead space to put them in if they're not already. Whereas in a base trade, everyone else gets supply blocked. As Zerg, we don't get supply blocked because our supply depots just fly away. And that's why we are super bullshit and unfair in this situation. So we want to take advantage of the bullshit, right?
Okay.
Move overlords to dead space. Just go find them, big control click them to dead space, and we'll be in a good spot. Cool. Yeah, the mutas were nice to shut down his drop, but if we had ultras as well, it would have given you probably more confidence in your army. As at this point, he could be at 3-3. He could have Widow Mines mixed into his army. Lots of Hellbats. He was going Blue Flame. There's a lot of things he could have had. So, yeah. Because you have mutas, it's even better for a base trade for you, though, right? Because floating buildings will not keep him alive. And you can see how few buildings he has left. If you pushed up into that ramp, you could have got through, even though it would have been a little expensive. He's got so few units there, it's fine. You just shoved up that ramp, you definitely win the base trade. But notice how all of our new lings popping at home. Let's see what happens to them. And to be fair, ooh, and then you see how you rallied into him? Remember, it's always about form up a rally in the back of your base. But you're doing what every Zerg player does in these scenarios. You're rallying into him. And it's always create a clump. And often in a base trade, your opponent's multitasking. And they'll try to push into your main and natural. And at some point you go, oh, I've got 20 Banes. And you just click the Banelings into their army. And it almost always kills this entire ball of bio. And then Zerg goes onto StarCraft Reddit and talks about how fucking bullshit and unfair Zerg is. Because they don't even need to micro their units. They just A-move Banelings at me. They don't even look at it. Fucking bullshit race. Fuck this. Why is Terran so weak? GG. Once again, going in spread out. Just a few units at a time. Banelings would have done really well for clearing this up, even against the Marauders since they are clumped. But yeah, GG, pretty close game. And remember, this comes off of the back of us shoving up a ramp into siege tanks. Just remember, you still can have an aggressive mindset. Wait for your opponent to move down the ramp. Wait for your opponent to take a third or a fourth base. Whenever your opponent has a really sick defensive position and your pattern recognition says, don't go up there, you don't need to necessarily back away from it, right? Attacking up a ramp? No. Just wait for them to move out or expand. When they come in the open, your army's going to do so much better. And this is a rule you'll find in many different situations. If we fix that, everything's different, right? Everything's different in this game. If they're not moving out and we're going, damn, I don't want to sit here just massing 1/1 Ling Bane on 50 drones for the whole game. It's up to you when you do this. It's your decision. Like I said, you can build 15 to 20 drones. You can build a big round of drones and start teching Hive and still keep massing Ling Bane. And a lot of people go, oh, but then that's greedy, but then his army is going to be better than mine. And it's like, well, maybe, but realistically, one round of drones and making an infestation pit and then making a hive is not that big of an investment, right? It really doesn't cost you that much while so much is happening. And it just gives you those options for that follow-up. And your army's still poised in a forward position, ready to counterattack. If they move out and you don't think you can take their army, you can run into their base, start killing all their workers, and that's going to buy you minutes of time to rebuild a new army at home. You know, you could catch them when they're unsieged, on the move out, when they're not looking. There's so many things you can do if you've got that forward stance on the map and you've got that aggressive mindset. We just don't want to be stubborn with the aggression and attack into... What you just did there is actually what I call chucking a Zerg. So chucking a Zerg is something where if you wonder why Terran and Protoss players sometimes stay in a game when they're dead, it's because every Zerg player, it's part of our Zerg identity, it chucks a Zerg like every second or third game. Where
What does it mean?
basically
Check a sec.
you have 5 bases, you've got the map, you've got a great position. The only way you can lose this game against this guy's shit setup is attacking into the most well-defended choke point in the game. But a habit even high-level Zergs have is we will go, I need to attack right now, and we will attack into the choke point and throw our army away and basically throw away a one game. This will never stop happening. This is part of your identity as a Zerg player. Unfortunately, this is what we do. There's some instinct we have to basically be like the aliens from, the Aliens film, the second Alien movie, where we just run into choke points into machine gun fire because we're fucking imbecile Zerg swarm bugs and we just like fighting.
Yeah.
Terran and Protoss rely on us doing this sometimes, which is why they stay in games, because they're like, I'm probably dead. But you never know. If I set up a good defensive position, there's always like a 50-50 chance the Zerg's just going to run into a really dumb fight for no reason. As we get higher level, we just want to improve our pattern recognition, chuck a Zerg less often, take less stupid fights, essentially. And walls, choke points, siege units are a couple of the big patterns that we'll look for. There's other scenarios as well. Like if you're playing Lingbane, they've got like Arc on Colossus. We kind of have to base trade or wait, like to buy time until we go ultras, right? We try to tech ultras, base trade, because we're like, this army is like tailor-made for killing Lingbane. But yeah, it's going to be just a situation where over time we get a bit better at picking these fights, and that's going to make us way better as a player. So if we look at the understanding, our opponent's done only light pressure. It was one Liberator into a single Marine drop, like medevac with like I think non-stim Marines even. Basically, he hasn't really done anything to control you this game, to slow down your creep or your growth. You've done a good job of getting in a good position, so just keep going. And yeah, you should be good.
All right.
Cool. All right, let's hop out of that replay, yeah?
All right.
I think there's a lot of good just like little points there though. And there's so much always to learn in StarCraft.
There absolutely is. And I still have to learn a lot.
Like Twitch chat says, for me the issue is not that as Zerg I get scared of turtle styles. Well, for me the issue is that as Zerg I get scared of turtle styles. It's hard for me to stay patient when I feel like I've got the advantage. But realistically, you've just got to stay patient and tech up. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, as Zerg, sometimes we feel like the sand's trickling out of the hourglass. And sometimes it is, right? If there's a Protoss on an open third base, and we give him another minute, he might have Storm and all this stuff kick in, and his army gets way better. But if he's sitting on 2 base behind a wall off, that's not like we got to chill, wait for him to move out into the open. You can't force it, and that's why positioning is so important, and the different scenarios are so important. And the thing is, if he's on a third base that's fully mining and taking all these tech and upgrades, yeah, giving him time's really bad. But if he's sitting on 2 base, his economy's so much lower that even there on 54 drones, we have a big advantage. And that's why something we want to improve is anytime we start thinking with fear or feeling emotions in our game, we want to try and just go back to the basics and go, where was my economy? Where is my opponent's economy? Like, what did my opponent have going for him in this game? And in that last game, I feel like your opponent didn't really have anything. Like, there was no scary push other than this kind of like, he could have done a Marine tank push, but I mean, it would have been impossible for him to get across the map without us jumping on him and forcing him to siege up like 5 times, or even killing his whole army or counterattacking. Like, there was nothing scary he could really do to us. And his third was so incredibly late, and he was even making a planetary on it, that we kind of go, oh, this is not that scary. But then we have to have a different sense for what that sort of player is compared to the player who's building a 4th base on location 6 minutes into the game. And if we let that get up by 9 minutes, you've got a maxed out mech army you're facing. And you're like, Jesus, this is like so much Terran. How did I let this happen? And that's why we've got to, bring it back to, too many times we get kind of superstitious. We go, oh, but Terran will be too strong if I give them time. Or, oh, but the Protoss army is going to grow with power. And it's like, well, no, this guy's just massing zealots on minerals only. It's a different sort of Protoss. So part of this sort of decision making is people focus too much on this decision making of should I do this or should I do that without thinking about what their opponent's doing. And that's really hard when you're newer or when you haven't played the other races as much or practiced as much, or you don't understand the context of what your opponent's goals are in the game. So something we always want to bring it back to, just in terms of theory, and we write down a few notes here, is I'll just write this below all the notes so far, is we always want to understand our opponent's setup and position in general terms. So obviously worker count, worker versus army versus tech investment, right? The pillars of StarCraft. Oh, he's got 3/3 and storm and blink and charge on the way, and he's got a robo bay and colossus range, and he's got 90 probes. He has like the ultimate worker and tech investment, but he has no army right now. Okay, this is the point to kill him, because if we give him 3 or 4 minutes to build army with all that economy and tech, we're fucked, right? Versus the guy who's just massing zealots with charge and nothing else, and he's got tons of army and no tech and no workers, right? And you kind of can inform your general decisions on that. And then if we want to go a little bit deeper beyond that, we want to think about specifically with scouting a player and understanding the direction they're heading. We want to think about signs of greed versus signs of aggression, right? So some examples of that is, let's just say, stick with Terran for now, and we can bring this up on the main monitor so the stream can view as well. We want to go, oh, well, what can we do here? Okay, 3cc. That's a sign of greed, right?
That's something I really need to learn, because what I'm missing out on is understanding the tells that their playing style gives me. I cannot interpret them yet.
Yeah. So start with the basics and try to make a habit of looking at your replays for these, because you're not always going to think about it live in the game. But the main way learning happens in StarCraft is after the game. You kind of go back and go, man, why did I get dicked so hard in this game? And you look at it and you go, oh shit, he had way less economy than I thought he did. Or like, I had a sense he was kind of playing this style, but he was actually playing this other style. So a lot of it's not in the moment you figure it out. It's you learn from the mistakes, right? More than anything, right? And it's as long as we can learn after the game, that's when we really get the knowledge, and then we can eventually apply that to future games in real time. Signs of aggression, only one upgrade structure, one or no upgrades, right? No, one or no eBays, right? Lots of barracks, production.
Aggression,
really early.
aggression also means that they will attack early on.
Yep. Because they don't really have much of a follow-up, right? So, there's also just a lack. No extra command center, right? No extra command center is big. But if you see people producing out of barracks with no add-ons, right? Well, that's obviously a huge sign of aggression, right? The earliest rush in the game is don't even take minerals, make it just a bunch of barracks, make marines, pull SCVs and go, right? But you can even do stim pushes or stim tank pushes where the last 3rd, 4th, 5th barracks don't have add-ons because they just want to get a few extra marines to hit as fast as possible. They don't want to wait to build the reactor. And it's just like, well, that is clearly optimized for one narrow window where they'll have 4 more marines. And if the game goes longer, they would have been better off building reactors because they would just have more marines out by a minute later or 2 minutes later in the game, right? If they built a reactor. So for them, it's like you can really sense like they're optimizing their build to hit hard right in this very narrow window, and then there's a steady falling off in terms of efficiency from what they would have had. So this is always nice. Also, have you been playing the rewind game at all? I'm not sure if I've talked to you about this.
Rewind game? No.
Do you click rewind at the end of the game normally, or do you exit?
I exit.
You need to, every single game, click rewind. Every game, press rewind.
I've seen pros doing that every time they have ended a game.
Then cover your eyes. Don't look at any info. And this is where we play the game. So basically what you're doing is you're quizzing yourself. You're testing your knowledge. Because when you're playing, you have limited information. So you'll have an idea in your head of what the situation was. And we play the rewind game where we quiz ourselves to test that knowledge. And that allows us to close the gap between perception and reality. So what did we think was happening and what actually was happening? And the more times we compare those, the closer they come together. Because with experience, we can learn when we're not understanding the game correctly and when we are understanding the game correctly. So what
What
is a
kind
good
of info?
example?
What kind
Yeah,
of info do you mean that I don't shouldn't
perfect.
look at?
Yeah, perfect example. So don't look at anything. Don't look at anything in the replay yet. You press rewind, but you need to come up in your head with a question for yourself. So ask yourself a question. So what's an example? Say you got hit by a marine tank push, and it put you in a rough spot.
Okay.
Ask yourself, how many SCVs did he have when he hit this push? And because that gives you a rough idea of how much he's committed to it, right? And you might be like, oh, I think he was 2 base, maybe 40 SCVs, because it hit super fast and hard, and I just couldn't, I just didn't have enough army. Because I was droning, really hard, up to 65 workers, right? Without realizing, okay? You might be something like that. And then you check the replay, and the Terran had 66 SCVs.
Okay.
And just was way less committed, but way further ahead already than you realized. And that's really important because you have moments like this all the time. And you go, what the fuck? Like, how is my perception so off? And this happens even to high level players. And what happened is in the heat of the game, you realize as you look through the replay, wondering how you were so off, that you forgot you let 4 Hellions kill 23 drones.
Yeah.
And you go, oh shit, of course. That's the real thing I should be focusing on, is how did that happen? But because so much happens in a StarCraft game, we often forget what happens in the early game. So sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's, oh, I was spot on. It's 43 SCVs. If you see me playing this on stream, you can really see what playing this game does for your game knowledge. Because there will be, obviously, playing tens of thousands of hours of games as well. The number of times I'll go, oh, that was like a 37 drone, roachling timing. That was really good. Like, I'm pretty sure. And I check and it was 38 drones. There's very many times. Sometimes I'm way off, right? And it often, depending on how focused I am that day or how familiar the situation is, sometimes I'm super on point with builds I'm familiar with, and I understood what was happening during the game, and I kind of really remembered everything where I fell behind or got ahead. And there's other games where I just completely forgot about something I fucked up early or whatever happened, or my opponent played different to what I'm used to playing against, and I'm off by 20 workers. And I go, oh shit. And that's really, those are the ones where I go, oh, and I spend a bit more time on the replay going, okay, I got to look through and understand what happened. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose to this over and over again because I have no idea what's going on. So that's like, if you can make that your number one homework, build that habit,
Okay.
So that's huge. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, like, it just crosses across every matchup, and it'll give you really good game knowledge. Did we want to look through another replay here quickly? I know we've talked about a few generalities. In terms of late game, I think ultras are fine for now. Can you do me a favor? Let's go to your document. Let's talk about late game.
I am there.
Let's just go to under late game. Patrick's ultra transition. So I want you to just, off the top of your head, you can see near the top where I've written that. Can you just write down a few dot points of what you would do? Okay, you're in this game. It's going to late game. You've done an attack. You did some damage. He did some harass. He did some damage. You're on like 60 drones or so.
60 already. Okay.
Or maybe 54. Let's say we're still on 54.
Okay.
Just tell me, in dot points, try to put down all the important things that you need to do to get to ultras.
Okay, I think that first of all, I would get up to 6 gases. Then I would build a 4th. Drone it up.
Yeah.
Up to 8 gases, maybe even. Of course, I would do the infestor pit. Is it called that? Go to like biggest hatchery hive, right? And build ultra building. I don't know what it's called. And then build ultras.
Cool.
And all
and those last 4 points are all like stuck together, right? Because it's one finishes, the next starts, that finishes, the next one starts, that finishes,
Yeah,
the next one starts, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So how many drones do you go up to? Because you've written 6 gases, drone up, and then eventually maybe even go 8 gases. You know, I don't know if we need eight
80?
gas. About 80 drones? Okay. I think 80 drones, 8
Mm,
gas sounds okay. Depending on how much gas you've saved in the game, which is probably not that much because you start very low on gas with this style. Yeah, that sounds about right. And it's probably better to overshoot on gas rather than undershoot. A lot of players will tell you, I mean, in general, minerals is more important, but in this case, where we've already started with a mineral heavy style, I think it makes sense for us to add extra gas. So, yeah, I think so. When you say drone it up, maybe write 80 drones, drone up to 80, and go up to 8 gases there. That could be really nice. I think that's yeah. The only thing I'd change here is, like I said, I would literally be like, infestation pit, build ultra building, build ultras plus armor upgrade. You can get the other upgrade as well, but that's the most important. And this is perfect. Like, this is really good. So something you can check for in games where you make the decision to go to ultras, check in the replay from the point where you make the decision to like tech up and transition, and just check if you're following kind of this order and stuff, right? I think the droning should probably also be the first step. I'll put that at the top if that's okay, because you're kind of gonna need to drone immediately. If you start taking gases and all this sort of stuff, that's gonna be an issue. You also wrote build a 4th, but normally you already have a 4th and 5th hatchery, right?
oh yes, yes, of
So
course.
you can probably delete that step, build a 4th. Because it's more the going up to 80 drones is you using your 4th and 5th hatchery that we usually have more as like macro hatcheries, and for the possibility to do this transition if we want to. And I don't think we need go to 6 gases and then go up to 8 gases necessarily. Well, probably. I would say, how about the 8 gas step? Maybe I'll add a little rule. If low on gas, go up to 8 gases.
Which I mostly was. So
Yeah.
that's why I got up to 8.
I think because you're taking 4 gases at once to go up to 6, and the initial transition of like infestation pit, hive is not that expensive. I think the earlier you make this decision to do these 2 steps, the more you can stay on 6 gases. And the later
Alright.
and more awkward it is, the more you're going to need to rush straight to 8 gases. So that's the only reason we're leaving a rule there, because I feel like what happens is if we prioritize going 8 gases straight away, and then you get better at this, you're going to find yourself floating 2,000 gas in your games.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of if we can make this transition a little earlier, it'll be cleaner. But I think having a transition like that, making sure you kind of follow that path to a certain extent, and it might be, you know, in steps. Like you might drone from 54 drones to 65, 70 drones, and then he's moving out, and you're making Mauling Bane, and you're fighting for a while, and your infestation pit's finished. You're not at 80 drones. You haven't even remembered to put on gas, right? Maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe you've remembered to put on gas, but you haven't done the other steps. And then once the fighting calms down a little bit, you go, oh, okay, click hive, put guys on gas, and how many drones am I at? Hover over the supply in the top. I'm only at set. Okay, let's build another 10 drones. You know, if you feel comfortable, or it feels like the opponent's just trying to kill you, and you're like, scrap the hive plan. I'm just making Lingbane and trying to survive because that's, you know, all I can do right now. If I really am just like he feels kind of all in or something. You know, obviously we're always playing flexible and adjusting to the situation, but I think that's such a nice transition to have, and I think it's kind of different to an early build order, right? It's kind of loose. Go 80 drones. Go to 6 gas. Do this building, then this building, then this building, then this building. So another thing you can check when you look at replays, look at the time between your infestation pits finishing and then the hive starting. And the hive finishing and the ultra cavern starting. And the ultra cavern finishing and you building ultras in the upgrade. And this is something you can just work on whenever you're going, I'm rushing Vipers, same thing. Minimizing the time between those, getting used to like kind of having in the back of your head a rough timer for when each one's going to finish, and then starting the next one quickly can shave minutes off your tech and can be a complete game difference. So that's something that you can kind of just work on as you get more used to it as well.
All right.
Cool. Awesome, dude. I think we are running out of time. Were there any other pressing questions or things we can talk about just for the last couple of minutes?
Maybe we can do that in the next session. I will play some 1v1s and try to get better, of course. And maybe next time we can talk about some late game or Terran techniques, because I'm winning most games against Zerg and Protoss. That's working very well. And yeah, that's it, I think.
Awesome.
So what would the homework be again?
So, number one homework is probably build the rewind game habit. I'll copy paste a list at the very top just so we
Oh,
know.
right.
And you can find the individual build the habit rewind game. And then we also want to break the habit of always clicking drones to bases. Right? We want to break that habit if we can. We want to build the habit of using our first lava inject to rally drones back onto gas in the main, right?
Oh,
That's a nice
all
little one.
right.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
We want to also, last but not least, we want to try and understand your opponent's setup a little bit more. And so if you can watch, this doesn't have to be every game, but just once in a while, apply general scouting knowledge to your replays. Try to understand signs of aggression, first signs of greed. We'll talk more about this in future sessions, but look at a game and go, oh, this guy, let's look at, maybe we go 6 minutes into a replay and just like pause the game there and look at the Terran setup or the Protoss setup and go, this guy has a third base already finished and he's floating it out and he's already got the double engineering bay upgrade started, and he's building up to 5 barracks. Well, this guy has like amazing macro, right? He's taking a third, double engineering bay, double upgrades. This guy is essentially full macro, right? He's got an amazing greed setup, right? But there's also no aggression off that at all, right? So maybe if you could have, in that sort of game, you're like, well, we can either potentially kill this guy really hard with just our 1/1 Ling Bane bust, or we could have been even greedier potentially and skimped on any sort of early defense and maybe gone even later in the game, right? Those are the two things you can punish, right? Whereas if you just sit there and play very middle of the road and don't attack, a guy who's played very greedy like that's going to beat you in the long run, right?
Can I ask a question
Yep.
quick? So sign of greed. Greed means that he's trying to get a lot of resources and thus a lot of upgrades and a lot of units in the later part of the game.
Mhm.
Whereas the aggression player is trying to get as many units out as possible, but as early as possible, without many upgrades, without many resources, and try to attack me very early on.
Exactly. Yeah. So with the
Okay.
aggression, we're going to need to cut our own economy potentially earlier, build lots more army, really focus on the army now to beat that push. Whereas against greed, we can still focus really hard on army, but if we do, it's because we're doing an all-in, right? We're trying to kill him before he turns all that greed, that economy and upgrades, before that turns into a really good army. Or we're trying to match it. We're trying to go very greedy ourselves as well to keep up with him, right? That's like the basic strategy is if they're doing the aggression signs, we just need to prepare to defend that aggression, make lots of army ourselves. And if they're going greedy, we either outgreed them or we go all in, one or the other.
All right, so we need to scout a lot for that, right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, generally, if you try to overlord sacrifice at like 3.5, 4 minutes every game, that's a good start. And if you oversee a scout whenever your lair finishes as well, that can usually give you really good follow-up info. If you just do that as well as having some good map vision, that's nice. And like I said, don't obsess over scouting constantly. If you can scout twice every game, that's great. Other than map vision, yeah. And just look at the replays after. So if you're dying to a scary push, then we can maybe go, okay, like, were there signs of this from my 2 normal scouting timings? Because that way it's very built in. Because we don't want to distract ourselves from our build by being like, I got to look at scouting every 20 seconds or something like that. Because that'll be counterproductive. Because then we'll just, screw up our macro too much. Yeah. Sick.
All right.
All right.
I'll
Really
get
good
used
progress,
to the
man.
game. Thank you so much. I will hit you up in a week also.
Heck yeah. No, really looking forward to it, mate. Awesome. All right. Good luck with the practice and keep up the grind, brother.
Man, bye.
Bye. All right. Shout out to Patrick there, legend. Doing really well. He's up to 3,600 MMR, which is great. I think close to 3,700 even, actually. He was up to 3,650. We started coaching a month ago. It's 3,150. So he's gone up about 500 MMR in the first three and a half weeks, which is great. But yeah, no, he's practicing a lot, which is why he's improving so fast. So can't guarantee that sort of progression, but if you practice a lot, you really apply critical thinking. I love the way he restates everything back to me. He goes, if I'm understanding this correctly, and he says it back in his own words. You guys want to learn and really maintain information. What you need to do is you need to codify that information in a way that makes sense for you. You need to like rewrite it in your own words. You need to say it back to them and say, okay, so you basically, and this kind of goes hand in hand with taking responsibility for understanding and getting better at things. What you really want to focus on is you can say, okay, I got to do what I'm taking away, what the actionable points are and lessons from this is step 1 this, step 2 that, step 3 that. Thanks, Analysis. Yeah, I saw your comment before, brother. I typed in the chat. It was such a sick series, wasn't it? It was so cool, dude. It was great. GG.